Fuding Hospital partners with Tzu Chi volunteers to host a medical outreach in remote Dieshi Township. We learn how students come into contact with drugs and what authorities are doing in the battle against it. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Marilyn Shoda. Thank you for joining us. We begin today's program in China's Fujian province, where some 643 patients were treated at a free clinic in Dieshi Township. The event was done in cooperation with Fuding Hospital and Tzu Chi Foundation. The long-term cooperation between the two groups has benefited this remote mountainous area, which typically lacks medical resources.
Tzu Chi volunteers in Fuding Hospital held 3 clinics in Dieshi Township. The recent event on this fall weekend unexpectedly encountered a power outage. The local township office rented a generator to solve the power problem so that the free clinic could be carried out smoothly.
This morning, I took a bus from the hospital. I got a little motion sickness. If the elderly go to see a doctor, it can be really inconvenient. Therefore, we really need Tzu Chi volunteers and our hospital to carry out this clinic.
176 medical care professionals are divided into different departments to comfort these patients, as the clinic here in Dieshi is like a mini hospital.
I usually don't have much exposure to the elderly, so this gives me an opportunity to help them.
Helping others can really help one become more happy.
At this free clinic, the majority of the patients are elderly. 81-year-old Grandpa Song typically doesn't have a chance to see a doctor, so he saw 3 different specialty clinics at once.
There's no one to accompany me, and I also don't have any money. Hiring a car costs about $90, and there's no one to accompany me to the hospital as I don't go.
With a weak heart, volunteers accompany him upstairs and downstairs as he went to see different doctors.
Grandpa is really old and lives alone. I feel the need to treat him like my own father. I can't really bear the situation he is facing.
Some elderly people have more health issues, which is difficult for us to manage. Fortunately, you hosted this clinic, which has been quite helpful.
Dieshi Township is a rural area with this free clinic attracting 643 participants, as many are seeking relief from pains and illness.
Taiwan has the highest incidence of colorectal cancer in the world. The precursor of colorectal cancer is colon polyps, which can be removed by colonoscopy. However, a typical colonoscopy is quite uncomfortable for patients. Thus, thanks to Dr.謝毓錫of Dieshi Hospital, patients' discomfort during this type of exam is lessened thanks to a new technology.
Ms. Guo's husband has a family history of colorectal cancer, so her family pays close attention to intestinal health. However, she is afraid of having a colonoscopy exam.
When I started to work as a doctor, I thought a colonoscopy could be improved. Sometimes when we conduct the exam for the patients, they may be given a groan of pain.
One person is diagnosed with colorectal cancer every 34.7 minutes. The precursor of colorectal cancer is colon polyps. According to data from a cancer foundation, about 800,000 office workers in Taiwan may have colon polyps.
The way to reduce the risk of colorectal cancer or to prevent its occurrence is to do a colonoscopy exam and find the colon polyps and remove them. About 75 to 90% of the patients can prevent this illness through colonoscopy.
To increase residents' willingness to accept a colonoscopy exam, Dr. Xie is engaged in research work. He found the traditional colonoscopy inflates the bowel by infusing it with air. If the gas is replaced by water when doing the exam or pumping water at the same time, it helps to lessen the patient's discomfort. With this new technique, adenomas and flat polyps can be found more easily.
I'm very thankful for Dr. Xie because he allowed me to know my health problems in advance and receive treatments as soon as possible. He's very considerate as he usually answers my questions patiently.
Patients usually need family members to accompany them when they receive anesthesia. Many of the seniors here are unable to find people to accompany them to undergo exams. Anesthesia used for colonoscopy will cost the patient's own expenses. So if we conduct the exam without anesthesia, it can also reduce the patient's financial burden.
The water-assisted colonoscopy prevents elderly patients from experiencing the risk of anesthesia when they receive the exam. This technique has also obtained international recognition. Back then, it was because Dr. Hsieh enjoyed interacting with others that he transferred from the Department of Chemical Engineering to medicine.
When a patient fully recovers, they will feel grateful, as they may come to see me very often. This is a great sense of accomplishment. In fact, doctors like me, who have been offering medical services for many years, have a relatively less economic pressure. So we try to do what we can to help. Otherwise, we would have nothing to do.
The thing that Dr. Hsieh wants to do the most is to offer counseling, health checkups, and research for patients. He is devoted to safeguarding the patient's health, as he often has irregular meals.
In our next report, we meet Mr. Yao, a former national karate athlete who became paralyzed in a severe traffic accident 7 years ago. After doing physical therapy for years, he has gained his mobility back enough to use a wheelchair. Last year, he picked up painting once more to release his emotions. Let's take a look at his artistic ability.
I won first place in every art competition in junior high school and obtained awards in every sketching competition.
He has been interested in painting since childhood. Many years later, painting has become the best remedy for his soul.
I feel heartbroken. I was riding a scooter and going to walk my dog. I became like this after I had a fall.
He bumped into a refuge island and injured his spine, leading him to become paralyzed. His skull was also damaged, and his left eye was removed.
His skull, spine, and nerves were severely injured. He also fractured many parts of his body. It's a miracle that he could survive.
Over the past 7 years, he worked diligently to do rehab. Now he is able to move around on his wheelchair and take a few steps.
I feel very happy about his recovery. Otherwise, he had to lie in bed the whole day. Sometimes he said he didn't want to live anymore because it's too painful.
Mr. Yao's wife has been looking after him without any complaint.
I always tell Mr. Yao that the thing he has done the most correctly in his life was to marry his wife. He also agreed.
He used to be a nationally ranked karate athlete, had served as head coach of Jianghua County's karate team for over 30 years. After the traffic accident, he has rebuilt his life, and he usually calms his mind by painting.
I use the thumb and forefinger to take the brush. In the beginning, I was not used to it, but now it's fine for me.
He suffers from atrophy and deformation in both of his hands. As he may experience nerve pain from time to time, he has to overcome it with strong will.
It's as painful as when you are stabbed by a needle and cut by glass.
For his wife and children's sake, he has to endure the pain. Over the past few years, Tzu Chi volunteers have given this family big support.
Tzu Chi volunteers really have great love since they have helped us through the tough times. I don't know how to express my gratitude, as I can only hide it in my heart. I feel very thankful.
After overcoming challenges in his life, Mr. Yao can now embrace a brighter future as he starts a colorful life with his brush.
Tzu Chi volunteers from Keelung visits the residents of a private nursing home each month. During their most recent visit, members of the Tzu Chi youth basketball team also came along to entertain the elderly.
Tzu Chi volunteers make a regular care visits to the seniors at a private nursing home in Keelung. Among the seniors is this grandmother who has been looking forward to seeing her grandson. Having been raised by his grandmother, Xu Tingya came along with volunteers to serve the seniors as well as practice his filial duties.
I fed tofu pudding to my grandma and gave her a massage. I also gave her a hug. She felt very happy.
Knowing that elderly people enjoy the lively atmosphere, some children in an ocarina team in this community have been invited to give performances, entertaining the seniors.
I feel quite happy. I'm wondering if you can come here once every week. At the end of each month, the seniors usually wait for a certain day that Tzu Chi volunteers will come once again to give them a massage and accompany them to do some activities, making them very happy.
After learning that the seniors look forward to Tzu Chi's next visit, the volunteers feel quite happy about this.
Angelina Giduk and her family live in Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia. However, her husband cannot work due to diabetes complications. Knowing their precarious situation, Tzu Chi volunteers immediately help them with financial subsidies.
The trip is very long, but Tzu Chi volunteers in Kota Kinabalu insist on bringing a bed to a care recipient.
When we came the first time, we noticed her home was very messy because she didn't organize. We also noticed her husband had been sleeping on a mattress on the ground. He didn't have a bed, so it was difficult for her to prop him up. So we came up with an idea by finding a bed and a toilet for him at the recycling station.
Angelina is unemployed now. Her husband suffers from diabetes and he can't walk because his right foot is injured. So she has to take care of him and also their 4 children. Tzu Chi volunteers come with goods and also living stipend to reduce her burden.
Before Tzu Chi came, I had much to worry about because I couldn't find any work. But now I have help and also rice. Rice is the most expensive living expense, so my burden has been lifted now, and I'm very thankful.
Tzu Chi volunteers give them the 3 bags of rice every month and also a walker, so her husband can learn to walk as his therapist. Tzu Chi volunteers will continue care for this family so their lives can become better.
Drugs have long since penetrated every corner of society, even corroding our next generation as they spread through campuses. According to a National Health Research Institute survey, 23.1% of respondents say their first experience with drugs was in school. In today's report, we examine how drugs have infiltrated schools and the importance of an early anti-drug campaign.
What seems like an innocent campus is actually infested with drugs as we find a student and learn more about the situation.
It was a normal cigarette and they asked me to have a puff. I hesitated at the time, but then I did, and I soon became very dizzy, and I didn't know how it would make me feel.
Peer pressure together with curiosity led 16-year-old Xiao Zhang to try ketamine, leading him to be drawn into a spiral of drug use.
Before taking drugs, I was approached by people for about 2 years constantly asking me about it. This led me to be quite curious. I wonder what it was like and why so many of my friends were attracted to it.
One thing led to another and he was soon sucked in, with Xiao Zhang spending some $6,000 to buy drugs.
Peers persuade us to take ketamine and we take MDMA when we are sad. It's not a family issue, but a breakup with someone.
Regardless of the reason, drugs have a big impact on young people. According to the statistics from the Ministry of Education, the number of students who abused drugs was 294 in 2007, quadrupling in 2009, and breaking 2,000 for the first time in 2012. Even though it reached over 1,000 last year in 2016, most of them used Class 2 and Class 3 drugs.
My friends have connection in addition to ketamine. I have seen some of the new drugs which have more beautiful packaging, but I haven't tried it because I'm afraid.
Another person exposed to drugs was Xiao Li, whose friend introduced him to new drugs. 2 years ago, during summer vacation, he was in a KTV, and everyone took ketamine with police coming in and taking everyone to the police station.
After being caught, police precincts will inform the school's external affairs and school district administrators, who then inform the Ministry of Education, which then seek out which students in which school.
When these official documents are finally sent, it may take as long as 1 year before schools know if students are taking drugs. This confusion leads to little follow-up, and some schools have initiated weekly urine tests.
The Ministry of Education gives us this test for amphetamine, MDMA, and another secondary class drug in this urine test for miscellaneous students, so we test for 3 drugs at once.
Xiao Zhang and Xiao Li are being closely tracked at the school, with the good news being that over the past 2 months their urine tests have been negative. Xiao Li also has more motivation in the form of his girlfriend's encouragement.
At first, I noticed that some cases can be drunk, while others might be sleepy when they come home. After you understand their dating or friend situation, you can probably learn more about them.
Parents and teachers need to be more vigilant for unusual behavior. Those using narcotics are getting younger and younger, as the National Health Research Institute finding that the average encounter with drugs is at 12.5 years of age. The Child Welfare League Foundation found that adolescents' attempt to use controlled drugs were followed by setbacks, poor family environment, relaxation, and curiosity. And for many people, the place where they have the first contact with drugs is on campus.
可是当他生命中遇到他生命的一个经历、挫折等等，那个时候他怎么样依循了他的生命的那一条应该遵守的法则去走。
Liang Mingyi has served as a director of school counseling. He has recently retired, and on the weekends and holidays, he serves as a drug counselor. He shares his family and students' exposure to drugs and encourages them to avoid drugs. The difficulty of blowing this balloon shows how ketamine can lead to atrophy of the bladder. This program is in cooperation between Tzu Chi and the Ministry of Justice. The lesson is part of anti-drug education using different types of games, real-life videos to educate the public about the dangers of drugs. The drug problem is complicated. Currently, programs are administered by the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of the Interior, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health and Welfare. Each group hopes the next generation won't grow up addicted. In the face of this war on drugs, lots of resources and vigilance will be needed.
Yang Chenghua works in the furniture manufacturing industry, and his successful career led him to live an alcohol-induced frivolous lifestyle. After learning his son's school lacked funding, he turned a plot of land at the school into an organic garden to sell the vegetables grown. It was when he made a delivery to a vegetarian restaurant run by a Tzu Chi volunteer that his life changed completely around.
This special school in Klan has an organic vegetable garden, which has long been cared for by Tzu Chi volunteer Yang Zhanghua. The income he earns from the harvest is used as operating expenses for this school.
If there is no budget, the school will be forced to close. Now that our school has no extra money, we can grow vegetables and give them to the canteen. I was asked to take care of this land.
Without any farming experience, Mr. Yang has been engaged in organic farming because his oldest son, who suffers from physical and mental developmental issues, he studies at this special school.
No matter how hard I have to work, I will raise him. This is a gift from God.
It was because of this vegetable garden that Mr. Yang started to get to know Tzu Chi. He has even quit his vicious life after participating in Tzu Chi activities.
Back then, I wouldn't return home until I got drunk. Sometimes I even went back home at dawn. Now my life is different. I go to my son's school in the morning. After completing my work there, I may go to my company. In the afternoon, sometimes I may go to the recycling station to participate in Tzu Chi activities.
Mr. Yang's big change has made his wife, who is also a Tzu Chi volunteer, feel quite happy.
Master Zhenyan asks disciples to be filial, love their family, and do good deeds. He tries his best to do these things.
Mr. Yang also treats and accompanies his children with love.
We should think twice before we do everything because it may influence them. That's why we should be a good person.
With the guidance of Tzu Chi, Mr. Yang has not only been able to quit his vicious life, but he has also begun to spread love by managing the vegetable garden.
To promote the greater adoption of solar power in the country, the Executive Yuan announced a new program to encourage more people to install solar panel roofs by the year 2020. The plan hopes to generate 3 gigawatts of electricity by subsidizing some 40% of installation costs to help alleviate critical power shortages.
To inspire more people to generate green power, the legislature took the lead, including the roof of the Zhenjiang Hall installed solar panels. The total area of 545 square meters, some 100,000 kilowatts of electricity is expected to be generated annually, which is enough for 30 households to use in a year. Will also reduce some 53 tons of carbon each year.
I think that in the future, this area could also be a tourist attraction, and everyone can come and take a look to see what roof-based solar power generation looks like.
Renewable energy power generation is also backed by an executive yuan plan, which will go into effect next year until 2020. The government will subsidize 40% of the cost of installing solar energy panels, as it hopes to generate some 3 gigawatts of green power in the next 2.5 years. This is the equivalent to the Taichung power plant's 6 units operating at full capacity. Many believe that this is a groundbreaking policy to help promote green energy on rooftops.
Summer sun is very hot, and roofs or factories, even parking lots, are unable to solve this problem. This is because building regulations say that only legal buildings or attachments are able to install this.
Preliminary plans include major incentives, as a 15 square meter area would have 1 kilowatt of capacity, costing $2,000, with the government offering 40% subsidy, which is the equivalent of $790, bringing more solar power into the community.
Kaohsiung's 18罗汉 Shan has beautiful scenery. However, the houses near the mountain were damaged when Typhoon Morakot hit Taiwan in 2009. Recently, Maoli National Scenic Area started to provide guided tours of the place, hoping to allow more people to learn from nature.
然后经过地质压力，然后交接成我们现在看得到的这些力。
When Typhoon Morakot hit Taiwan, the buildings near 18罗汉 Shan were destroyed. The comparison of the scene of devastation and the current scene is quite shocking.
In the past, the parking lot was below the first floor. In addition, there were 6 statues of sons of the dragon.
8 years later, the new service area has been built. Fortunately, the 6 old tunnels are intact. Docent volunteers now lead the public to look at the beauty of the place. Among them, Wu Qingpo, who once sold pesticide, reflected upon himself because of Typhoon Morakot.
I often reflect upon my destruction to Liugui district. Therefore, I need to contribute to the environmental protection of this place.
Therefore, when Maoli National Scenic Area recruited volunteers, he was one of the first ones to be certified.
More than 100 people were recruited. Later, we picked volunteers mainly from Liugui residents. They have attachments to the place, so when they give tours, they have more connection with the place.
With love for this place, the local volunteers want more people to respect and understand the power of the nature through their guided tours.
After joining in a Tzu Chi camp for entrepreneurs, the village head of Fosan's Liang Cha was deeply impressed with Tzu Chi's conservation ideals. Upon his return home, he enacted a recycling program in the village, inviting all to join him. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.